What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Football Friday edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We are powered by our wonderful friends over at Played Again Sports. They got a couple new stores opening up as well very soon. And tell you what you do, you bring in your slightly used sporting goods to these locations that you've heard us mention on the air. You get cash on the spot. You can trade in for more cash on the spot. That drives the traffic. We know that. And I'll tell you guys right now, they got all the used sports equipment and more. I was just up there a couple weeks ago. You know, I love to get the weights, the free weights, the dumbbells, everything. They'll give you some good bang for the buck. And with that, we're trying to keep them in focus on this Friday as we are in week 9 of the NFL season. The prop kind enough to join us. How are you, brother?
Hey, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm in a makeshift office here, but hey, that's all right. I'm glad to be on with you. We can talk about a couple things.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do I offer you condolences for?
Bad. I mean, all around bad. I mean, listen, you can't. I know we're going to go into 5 or 6 marquee NFL games, but you're up in the World Series 5-0. As soon as Cole did not do what every kid is taught to do when you're playing catch with your own man and you run the first base with the little flip throw, I text my buddies and I said, "Effing series over, ball game over, Yankees lose, Yankees lose." Yeah, it was
I like
pretty
that he
depressing.
pointed at the base. Cole pointed at the base, like, "Hey, I think you can get it." Listen, the Dodgers were just better. I said it on last week's show. Hey, I said when I'm wrong and I said when I'm right. And uh, I thought the Dodgers were better. I bet them that way. I did have my rolling parlay for a sweep that lost, but that's okay. I backed it up by having minus one, minus 1.5 games. I played a couple alt lines that way, and I got a good line of it was minus 130 or in that range. It wasn't higher than that. I got it in the beginning. I just thought the Dodgers uh, were a little bit better, and I was only looking to get so see that they got the first 2 games, and then I was happy when they got the first 3. Now you're free rolling. So it's a shame baseball's over, but we move on. We got college basketball next week, and now we have about, I guess, almost 65% of college football's done. We'll say 60% done, and we're probably this is the halfway point for NFL, right?
Week 9,
What's
week
this, week
9. Yeah.
9?
Week 9
Yeah.
last night, where, a catch is a catch. Who knows? If you took the Texans the money line or with the points, you weren't too happy about that. Jets on Thursday night, all of a sudden coming alive. There's a couple games that I was looking at that I do want to get your thoughts on. And I think, I look at a weekend like this and maybe you get the pretenders, the contenders, and some teams that are potentially on upset alert, right? And there are a couple games, like I'm looking at this Miami and this Bills game right now with Tua coming back. The Bills are only laying 6 at home. One of the highest totals of the weekend, 49.5. I feel like the Bills are just starting to get right, and this is pretty much the last gasp for the Miami Dolphins.
Uh, Interestingly, it's one of the games that I've already played, uh, and I have Dolphins +6. So, the games I gave last week, remember I almost apologetically said I like the Browns. I liked a lot of slot last week. Uh, and I almost got there with the Giants on Monday night. We were right there +6, but I played the Dolphins. I think that that they'll score. And I do think that the Bills are probably going to come out of the AFC. I think it'll be Bills KC. Of course, there's a lot of football left. I don't know. Baltimore has the tiebreaker over Buffalo, but if I'm betting it, I think you can get a relatively decent number on the Bills. Now, a lot has to fall right for them because they don't want to fall into a head-to-head where they end up having to travel on the road. But I'll tell you right now, Rich, if we get an AFC championship, let's assume that the Bills do get through the beginning rounds and maybe get a home game or something. And let's say it's Buffalo in Kansas City. Are you going to count out Buffalo?
You can't.
I mean, that
Kansas
line's not
City
going to be
squad.
much. As good as Kansas City is, I'm not going to be one of these guys be like, oh, well, they should have lost here and they should have lost here and their schedule hasn't been that good. And Mahomes has more interceptions than TD passes, and their defense is great, and all that. I mean, Kansas City is Kansas City, but looking at it from a point of, okay, who besides Kansas City can make the run? Bills are right there. I mean, Bills that got tortured last year with that ridiculous, had a tough schedule. They're getting kind of tortured again this year with a tough schedule. But look what they did to Seattle last week. It was one of the games we had. I mean, we both agreed on that. We thought that they would play really well. It's almost like the old zigzag theory in NBA playoffs. It's like every week the season's getting so long for some of the players. It's like they look great and they look bad. This isn't by accident. I don't think you can go too far one way. My team played great, or my team played awful. People are really down on the Texans now. Scheduling has a lot to do with this. It is a marathon. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's a marathon. And the Texans will be better than they were last night. That's kind of it's an odd road game, off even though the Jets were floundering, it was a close game.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a knock on the Texans. The Texans, they still get Jacksonville, I think, at home. I think they still have 2 with, I believe, Tennessee. And I'm doing this off my head. I think
division.
Their schedule's not that difficult. But the overall point is, if the Bills somehow lose this week, which I think they can, and I actually think that they will, as crazy as that sounds, I will take the 6. I don't know if I'm going to be as bold unless I can get a really good plus number on the money line. But they played well up there. Remember, they played in the playoff game. Was it last year or 2 years ago? It was 2 years ago. They went up and almost won the game. They went in at halftime. They played great, and then they had to come all the way back, and Tua didn't play in that game. That was the game Tua didn't play. I think they match up well with the Bills. The Bills aren't, aren't lockdown defense or anything. I like Miami in the game as well. I mean, listen, it's possible for the Bills to look great and still lose a close game, So I think we're still at this phase where you don't overreact, because I think you're going to have a couple teams that finish this 13-4. Maybe even 12-5, and they're top seeds, and no one's going to work. Like last year when KC lost on Christmas Day to the Raiders, it was a blip, but everybody said, "Oh, can they win on the road?" People thought it was the end of the world. I think not overreacting to us. Look at what the teams have done so far. That's what they are. That's what they are through 9 games. So will it adjust insanely? It won't. You kind of are who you are, and I think Miami does match up well with Buffalo. That leads into another game, but again, I'll let you pick it, because it segues into a couple games that are kind of in these kind of weird situations. I was going to bring up the Bengals. Bengals are going to be a popular play. Well, they can't play as bad as they did last week, kind of thing. They won't, but they're also laying 7. This game opened, I believe, 9 or 9.5.
Yeah, it's dipped. Absolutely.
I can't read my own writing, but yeah, it opened. Ravens opened 9.5, and Bengals opened higher than what this line has come down to. I bet it. The Raiders early. I didn't get the best line, but I got plus 8.5. And I got more than 7. You're going to see a lot of 7s. It's not because the Raiders are great. It's because I think they play good enough defense that I don't think they're going to get blown out. And the Bengals are kind of, I don't think last week was an aberration. They can't stop anybody. But here's what's crazy: they could still make the play. They could eke out a win here, and go to Baltimore. I
Yep.
believe it's next week, and they could win that game. It's would you be surprised? I mean, if they win a 42-41 game. Remember when we went back and talked about when they were how poorly they started out, and then they played the game in Kansas City, and I said I expect them to play well here, but they could play well and lose. That's exactly what happened. It's now they're going to start accumulating wins.
They have
Uh,
to.
her,
Yeah.
but the Steelers have that weird quirk in their schedule. They played no division games, so they're going to see the Steelers twice. Uh, uh, the Steelers might have a little bit of a bumpy road, and if Cincinnati can squeeze out some wins, they're going to be right there. But I do like the Raiders this week. People are going to have getting 7. I would take the 7, but I think more than 7 is a decent play.
I
I
think
like Miami better, but
I think, yeah, well, speaking of which, I think one of the games that might be tricky, we know the Giants offense is inept. They're at home. They haven't won it at home. If they lose again, it'll be their worst home record to start a season since 74, I believe. Your squad, my squad, the Commandskins, right? The NFC East divisional winner that I
how
predicted.
about last week? It's like old news almost, yeah.
I mean,
Unless
it
we
was
can
in
get
slow
on the
motion
show on
that play.
Monday, I've seen it so many times, and I actually like what Tariq Stevenson said. I kind of lost track with him. I knew a little bit about him when he first came. I'd forgotten, he's 24 years old. I'm not going to make excuses for him for taunting, the Redskin fans. He says he was talking to the Bears fans, and if you see the one clip, they're pointing. He said, "Yo, look, you got to get, you got a play going on." But he apologized to everybody, and he is a good player. But I that's on the coach. Did you see what Rex Ryan said? This is exactly what I thought. He said, if I was on the side, I would blitz 4 guys. He's not going to. You're not going to. If you're going to score a touchdown, you're catching it and you're running it at 40 yards in.
Yep.
You can go round and around. The crazy part is that could decide a playoff. That could decide if the Bears make the playoffs or not.
But now Washington's got to come back though, and they have to keep the momentum against a bad team.
I think they're just better than the Giants. The Giants are in a little bit of trouble. I think the Giants will make it competitive like they did last week. They had opportunities last week. I mean, the rookie drops a third, on the next to last drive. He drops that third down. I mean, nobody's near him.
That was a killer. Malik Neighbor. Yeah.
Things like that just cripple you, and then people forget, and then it ends up getting, it falls back on the quarterback, and then then they call for Dable's head, and I think they'll play well, but I don't think they'll get killed in this game. But I do think Washington will win and cover. It's a game I'm not focused on simply because I have other games that I think are really ballsy and interesting to play, a lot like Cleveland last week. When you got played 8.5 plus 8.5 last week. People were telling me, "Oh, you're crazy, you're crazy."
You called that out right on the show.
Of course, I didn't know Winston was going to. I didn't know it was going to. The D-back for Baltimore was going to drop the ball right in his hands but these games are always close. And I get it. Cleveland's defense has not been what they were, but are they as overrated as the Jets defense? They've kept them in games, and I'm not making excuses for a dude who makes $250 million. Nobody likes him, and everybody's kind of ganging. I think he's been hurt for a year. I think he gets these nagging injuries, and then he's just one of those guys. He's not Baker Mayfield. He doesn't play through them, and he plays terrible. Now, they did have a horrible call against the Raiders. If they get that touchdown call, I think they beat the Raiders. So they're not inept, is my point. So they, the fact that I didn't expect them to beat the Ravens, but that's what happens when these games are close and they come and it comes down to the thing. Now, people are going to think the Ravens are going to absolutely smoke Denver.
9.5. I was just going to lead into that.
And that line is, what I like to say, people smarter than me are thinking the way I am because I bet it early in the week with the lower limits, and then I played it. I figured it's good all the way. Anything more than 7. 8 and 9 are dead numbers. I'd still like to have them though if they're out there, but I think Denver will be in this game. And Denver's going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's crazy to
They
think
got a
that.
shot to make. I mean, still a lot has to go. If Knicks cannot throw interceptions like crazy interceptions like he did early, just limit the interceptions. Throw the ball into the stands. Don't force just that simple thing. Their defense is good enough.
To keep them
They
in
can keep
games.
them in the game. And you remember, I think it's 2 years ago where Russell Wilson went in there and Hackett was the coach, and they were absolutely atrocious. And they got up early
Yep.
on them and played good D. And they had a couple big, I think they had one or two bad defensive holding calls late, and they ended up losing by 1.
Right.
The Ravens won. I think the Ravens were laying 10. It was something high. It was something big, or 8. It was high. It was up there. It was similar to what it is now, maybe a little bit more. And I see that kind of a game. I do not expect it to be 24-3 Ravens. Rich, I know if you notice this, with everything going on, you got it's tough to really wrap your head around everything that's going on unless we really focus on it. It would, I try to do for at least for betting purposes, but it's the Ravens can't stop anybody.
They can't. You go right up and down the field.
I get it. I get it. Some of this now you have to look at some of the better stats. You're like, well, when you're up 4 touchdowns, those yards are gimme yards. I don't really look at but the Raiders loss was problematic. The way Dallas came back,
Cleveland
was a problem. And they're not. Listen, we're used to them being like the way Denver's defense is right now. We're used to them being okay. Listen, Tennessee's defense is better than theirs. It's just they're not. When you don't have a above average defense, you really limit.
Correct.
You really have a small gap for what mistakes you can make. That goes into the. I figured we would jump to the Monday night last, but I just on my mind because Tampa can't stop anybody.
Nope.
And I have a prediction about Tampa, which I think is going to
miss
happen.
The playoffs.
Well, yes, but that wasn't what I was going to say. But it's possible they could still make it because the defense has been. Bowles is a defensive guy. This is what's.
You think they keep this game close?
I think they'll keep the game close. I think this game. Now I didn't bet the game. I don't think it's going to go to 10. I don't think it's going to go back to 7. There's more of a chance that
you see 31-24 type of game.
I could see Kansas City getting out, and then Mayfield,
coming right back and throw for 400 yards.
He doesn't give up. They could be down 35-10, and he will not give up. He will just keep firing. So you give a guy like that more than 7, and I don't think it'll be like the Dallas game. When San Fran had the third quarter where they just wiped the floor with them, and he went to bed. They came in, they lost by 6. Now they didn't cover, but they sure got all the teasers though. If you had teasers with them, I think here's my prediction.
Yeah.
My prediction is if they do miss the playoffs, is Bowles will be fired.
Yeah,
and they will make a serious run at Belichick. The Glazer family is close with Belichick.
Yeah.
And we talked about this last year, and I said, I don't see him going there because remember that was middle of the year, and Mayfield was, but then they made the playoffs, and he won a playoff game, and he was healthy.
Yep.
And is he a top 12 quarterback?
The way he plays, he's very inconsistent, but when he plays,
I give him that he's top 15. I think he's just too short to see over the.
You can win with him. He's a gamer.
But they were playing really well against the Ravens until he threw the horrible interception. Now I don't want to do the ifs and buts things, but when he's healthy, he can make plays.
Agree.
And they did beat Detroit. Detroit probably the best team in that.
You just need the good Baker. You don't need the bad Baker, right?
You can't if he can limit he's got 7 or 8 interceptions the last 3 games. If he can limit it, but he's a Favre kind of guy.
Yeah. he
wings it. And those guys are hard to prepare for. But don't be surprised that, I said it here. I don't know if other people are saying. I read Tampa's newspapers. I was reading up on Tampa's newspapers to see what they're going to do with Tropicana Field.
I think they're going to cover the number. I think they're going to play competitive football.
I think they're going to be competitive. I like them not to get hammered because Kansas City isn't playing. They're not that kind of offense anymore. They really, they just aren't. Everybody's hurt now. What's scary is they're going to get a lot of people back maybe later on. So just like San Fran, maybe McCaffrey doesn't play until he absolutely has to. Kansas City might be in that boat. Plus, again, the season's so long. I don't want to say teams will coast, but you can't. It's really difficult to play your absolute best every game.
Sure.
And you're starting to see this a little bit with Mahomes. Now there is a favorite, a big favorite I think we'll cover is I think the Eagles will beat Jacksonville.
Agree.
Pretty handily. I'm not going to play it. I'm actually going to play a teaser with them, and then you can take your pick of some other plus EV teasers. Green Bay might actually be in the mix there. If close to kickoff they're getting 2 or 2.5, Green Bay would be a good teaser leg in there. Also, I think that game will be close. Also,
I think high scoring game too. Totals 47.5.
Yeah, they were calling for
weather-wise,
which is 55 and wind and rain or something. You always look at the wind. I don't care about the snow or necessarily the rain because the footing always favors the offense. But when it's windy, you can't throw. You're kind of like, huh. But then there's some narrative where people are like, oh well, the Lions are a dome team. They're good enough that they can play well everywhere. But I think the game will be close. Listen, Detroit at Arizona was a close game. It could look like something like that where it comes down to 1 or 2 plays. I didn't play anything in the game, but I would if the line is still 1.5, 2, 2.5. Because right now it's 2.5 juiced. If it goes to 3, I would ignore it. I don't like any moves up to 3 or across 3. I know it opened higher than that. It went down, so they're bouncing around. But I'm just thinking just for teaser legs, if you think it's going to be close, I do like Eagles and the teasers. I think they'll win the game. I think they'll win the game by a lot, but without a doubt, they're going to win the game.
Yeah.
The other game that I have that I bet also is, and you're going to laugh. I know Carr's playing this week, so
can't do it.
But I'm going to take a shot with Carolina because Carr's that much better. Spencer Rattler's terrible, but I think the Saints are terrible.
We got bamboozled last week, right, with the Chargers and the Saints.
Oh God, it's not because I was mad. I thought that the Chargers thought that game. I didn't respect the Chargers defense as well as I should have.
Plus, the quarterbacking play was so poor for the Saints,
and I underestimated how bad Rattler is. Rattler's bad. Their defense is bad, but their defense has been. You can't blame it just on Rattler. I mean, their defense is just not good. And they Saints did play well for 3 quarters, but now you're going to dress them up and make them lay a touchdown, more than a touchdown. I got more than a touchdown. Now it's going to close at 7. It's not going to budge off that. You're going to get 7 minus 10. Nobody wants any pieces of Carolina. Nobody does. Nobody wants to bet it. Because they're thinking. Or how bad are they? Remember, we had this conversation at the beginning, and I kind of gave them a little bit too much credit. So are they going to be absolutely horrible, or are they going to be just terrible? Kind of terrible. I went back and looked, and who's equally terrible? Their scoring margin, the differential through 7, 8 games, right around this time is the worst ever. I mean, I'm not going back past Super Bowl era or even I don't like past 78. It's bad. It's bad. Over 19 points differential. The worst differential of a team ended with a high differential. One of the highest was the Rams team, a team I completely forgot about. Now I know why. That it was the 2009 Rams that had Bolger's quarterback.
Yep.
I think the whole year they only threw 6 touchdown passes.
Wow.
They're 1-15. And I have no memory of that. I remember Bolger there, but the 1-15 team. So the 2009 year, the year that was kind of a muddy where like Warner was in Arizona and that kind of thing. And that team was unbelievably bad.
Yeah.
Once you start looking at them, they're worse than the Detroit 0-16 team.
Wow.
And so is Carolina going to be right around that? Probably. maybe. Does that mean that Saints should lay more than 7? Listen, they may go out and house them, but more than 7. I took Carolina, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win, if they do something crazy. They win 13-12. Remember they won a game last year that way.
That's right. Then no one
Was it
thought they
against
were.
Tennessee, or was it against? I think they beat Houston.
Yeah.
13-12. He's like, well, how in the world did they win this game? I mean, just run the ball, run the ball
Yeah.
41 times or whatever.
Want to remind everyone again, the props appearance from our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Columbus Bridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey. They're open 7 days a week. You can also check them out online. Wonderful ratings. You walk in, everyone takes care of you. They're focused. They'll answer all your questions. They give you a great cash right on the spot for your used sports equipment and more. So they give you probably the best trade-in around for all you sports fans out there. And of course, you high school kids, parents tuning in. You want to take your kids over there if you need some shirts, tees, uniforms, they'll also help you as that. They do a great job embroiling as well. I know we got a couple minutes before we get out of here. College play. We haven't gotten into it a lot because we've been a little tight with the NFL, but a college play that you are thinking of, Penn State, Ohio State, throw it to you. What are we thinking here?
Well, if you like Penn State, you missed the hook. It was plus 3.5 until this morning, I believe. I looked this morning. I looked last night, but they were getting 3.5. Now it's a solid 3. I don't think it'll budge from that. It's 3, but I like Penn State in the game. Maybe it's one of these things. If not now, when? But it doesn't have the same pressure, because I think both guys are going to make it, and I think both coaches know they're going to make it.
Right.
The only thing is Indiana will play at Ohio State, I believe, the next to last game, which is going to be an unbelievably big game for Indiana. So with that being said, I like Penn State in the game. They look kind of, so far of everything that they've played, their numbers look really close. Both have great defenses, and it could end up being a 17-10 game, something like that. That's kind of how I say it. Check real quick. Indiana, I believe, is playing. I looked at Indiana's schedule, and I noticed that this is an unbelievable year for.
They got Michigan State
football. Right, so there is an unbelievable year for them. They've never. I don't think they've trailed this year. I don't think they've trailed. Think about how hard that is, not to trail.
That's crazy.
We're past Halloween, so I actually think Michigan State has a shot to win this game. I think Michigan State, because Michigan State can't score, but they play decent defense. Their numbers aren't bad. They're not a great team at all, but these kind of things constantly happen in college, where you're focused on that over there maybe, and you start believing your own hype, and even without that narrative, Michigan State can play defense, and they can win that game. Yeah. They can win this game, which is kind of sad, because I kind of want to root for an undefeated Indiana to play against the one-loss Ohio State team, because then you'll really see how that's almost like a desperation game, because you don't know if a 2-loss Ohio State team is going to get in. So right. That's the one play. But they come out with the announcement for the first rankings.
Yeah.
I think they were supposed to come out Tuesday, but because Tuesday's the election, I think they're going to do it Wednesday. Not positive. It's coming out next. It's coming out next week.
All right, we will.
I did play one.
Yeah.
I did play one total in NFL. I played 2 totals. I played over in the Rams game, Seattle. I think if the Rams were full strength, you saw kind of what they did. It's Minnesota. I think Seattle will win the game, but there's so many ifs. I don't know. There's too many ifs for me to even play it. But I like the over in that game. I actually had a small bet on under last night, which is past posting. I should have did what I did, text you. So, now it wasn't anything big. I don't really get overly involved in totals really until next week.
Gotcha.
We're gonna start playing first half, second
Yeah.
half, things like
Pass.
that.
Nice little
But
reference.
it's dog weekend. That's the best thing you can
All right.
say. Is
All
I
right.
have a
Well,
lot of dogs.
hey, listen, you've been on a nice little run. We've had a couple little bumps in the road, but that's okay. Don't forget to give the prop a follow on X at Professor Shine. And he is always brought to you by our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports. I got a couple new stores opening up. We're going to give you the details on Monday's edition of BYP in the Drive with Q, but he is focused. He is locked in. Next week, we'll dive into a little NBA as well. Got to get into
Wait,
that.
you have 1 minute. I got to ask you something.
Yes.
Last year, the Rams were 3-6 and made the playoffs. Did the Jets? Did the Jets have a run?
Last night was an aberration. I
Can
don't
they
want to hear.
finish 9-8?
He can drink all the cayenne pepper water he wants. Whale sperm. It's not happening.
Does that
No.
work? Cayenne pepper? I don't know. Pickle juice? I don't know.
Yeah,
What?
Deuce Staley running for 200 yards in Dallas opening day, right? So
Remember?
there you go.
So the Jets, can they win 8-9? I mean,
I don't see
obviously
it.
their goal.
And
I'm,
it's maybe because I'm
I'm,
just such at this point a
I'm
Rodgers hit. Yeah, who
something's
knows?
wrong with them.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with them, but the schedule's not that big.
Oh my
Put it this
God.
way: we'll talk about it the week before Thanksgiving, because
Perfect.
if they've won 2 games, if we're having
Then
that conversation and they're 5-6.
no, you have to have the conversation then. So, all right, my friend, always appreciate a couple moments. Have a good sports weekend. Put some coin in the pocket. We'll do it again next week, my friend.
All right, take care.